Good morning, everybody. My dear students, grade 12, Science and Art. How are you? I hope that you all fine. Welcome you all from our school, المجتمع Private School for Girls. Today we will start a new lesson. It's Module 3, Human Nature. Lesson 1, Reading, 3A Part 1. Student book page 38 and 39. And as usual, we will start with our value. Our value for this week is honesty. Honesty is the best policy. الأمانة. الأمانة يا بنات من الحاجات اللي احنا لازم كلنا نتحلى بيها. الأمانة مش بس في إنك تحفظي حاجة حد أو إنك تحفظي سر لحد. الأمانة إنك تحافظي على نفسك، على أهلك، على دراستك، على بلدك، إنك تحافظي على كل حاجة في حياتك. أتمنى أن تكون الأمانة إحدى الخصال المهمة في حياة كل واحدة منكم. And now, let's start with our objectives. By the end of this lesson, hopefully, you all be able to identify the two types of text after reading the text on page 38 and 39. Identify details in reading text by matching the statements to their corresponding text after reading the text on pages 38 and 39. Now, let's start with the first objective, to identify the two types of the text. Before reading the text, we are going to discuss some points. The first point, what kind of information would you expect to find in a text about a person's life? How can we benefit from reading about someone else's life and experiences? If you were writing about your own life, what experiences would you choose to write about? Take your time. You can pause your video and start answering your questions. Now, let's check. It's just a suggestion. Answers about your questions. What kind of information would you expect to find in a text about person's life? What kind of information would you expect in a text or book about person's life? I would expect to find information about the person's family, childhood, educational background, personal life and career. And I would also expect to find information that justifies why that person was worth writing about and what makes or made him or her so special. The second question, how can we benefit from reading about someone else's life and experience? It's just a suggested answer. By reading about other people's life, we can learn from their experience, be inspired by their achievements, and avoid making the same mistakes. And the last question, if you are writing about your own life, what experience would you choose to write about? For me, if I were going to write about my own life, I think I would write about some interesting experiences that I have had. Or maybe I would write about my family and how supportive they have been. Now, with the first text that we have today, can you decide what type of text is this and why? Read your text and try to decide what type of text this one and why. Is it autobiographical one? Is it biographical account, a magazine article, or persuasive text? Read the title, the first line of each paragraph, and decide what type of text is this one. You can pause your video, read the text from your student book page 36 and 37 and decide. Yeah, it's autobiographical or biographical? No, it's a biographical one. Why, teacher? We said this one or this type of text is biographical, not autobiographical one. Because the text is a biographical account. This means that the writer is writing about someone else, about somebody other than himself or herself, and that he or she is writing in the third person viewpoint. Again, this type of text is biographical because the writer uses, the writer uses the third person viewpoint, and he write about someone else. He didn't write about himself. Okay. The second, it's the second text. What type of text is this, and why you say this kind of text? Is it autobiographical, biographical account, a magazine article, or a persuasive text? Okay, answer? Excellent. It's autobiographical one. Let's know what is the difference between text A as biographical one and text B as autobiographical one. Why we said the first one is biographical, as we said before, the writer uses what? Yeah, the third viewpoint to talk about someone else. He or she write about someone else, not writing about himself or herself. Then why this is a pure autobiographical account? This means that the writer is writing about himself and is writing in the first point of view. Say, I was born, I grow up, I was teaching, etc. Okay, to know the difference between autobiographical account and biographical account. Biographical account to talk about someone else, and you use third viewpoint. Autobiographical one, we use first point of view and we talk about ourselves. This is the difference between autobiographical account and biographical account. Now, we are going to identify details in the text by matching statement to their corresponding text after reading the text on page 38 and 39. Now, read the text carefully. We have text A. Listen and read at the same time, then we will answer some questions, okay? Listen carefully to our first text.
Module 3, Human Nature. 3A, Reading. Text 1.
Live and help live. Abdul Sattar Idi was born on the 28th of February 1928 in Bantwa, Gujarat, India. Charity was part of his life from an early age, and as a young child his mother would give him 1 paisa coin for his lunch and another to give to a beggar or child in need. When she suffered a stroke and was paralyzed in 1939, her 11-year-old son devoted the next 8 years of his life to her health. In 1947, after the death of his mother and the establishment of an independent Pakistani state, Idi moved to Karachi. In Karachi, Edie began what would soon become the largest welfare organization in Pakistan and the largest volunteer network in the world. With no wealth of his own, Edie begged in the streets for money in order to start a free medical dispensary. In 1951, he established the Edie Foundation and eventually received enough donations to buy an ambulance which he drove himself. When the Asian flu hit Pakistan in 1957, Edie enlisted the help of medical students and established treatment centers. Greatly saddened by the poor conditions around him, Edie expanded his charitable works and established maternity clinics, outpatient hospitals, and orphanages, all funded entirely by charitable donations. A Muslim, Edie made it a point to treat all people regardless of religion or social background. He worked particularly hard to improve the lives of children and became the legal guardian of over 20,000 orphans. Abdul Sattar Edie died on the 8th of July 2016 of kidney failure. At the time of his death, the Edie Foundation operated over 1,800 ambulances, 300 clinics, and 4 hospitals throughout Pakistan. The foundation had also provided vocational training for thousands, including over 40,000 nurses. Upon his death, the Pakistani Prime Minister said, "We have lost a great servant of humanity."
And now, let's answer some questions to analyze your own text, text A. The first question, when was Abdul Sattar Edie born? Excellent. On 28 February 1928. Thank you very much. Second question, why would his mother give him an extra piece of coin? Who can answer? Excellent. To give it to beggar or child in need. Question 3. Why did he beg in the streets in Karachi? In order to raise money to start a free medical dispensary. Then, when did Abdul Sattar Edie die? On 8 July 2016. Thank you very much. Now, with the second text, read the text carefully, then answer the questions.
Module 3, Human Nature. 3A, Reading. Text 1.
Live and help over 1,880,000 nurses. Upon his death,
My career, my calling. I was born in 1990 and raised on the outskirts of London. My parents, who had emigrated from India, were always stressing the importance of education, so I realized its value from a young age. I grew up knowing that I wanted to be a history teacher. After finishing my undergraduate history course, I decided I'd take a gap year to travel and get some practical teaching experience. It was a decision that would change the course of my life forever. In 2012, I found myself in rural Bangladesh. A few days after my arrival, I was teaching a mixed class of 5 to 15-year-olds in a schoolhouse consisting of one room. The students were thirsty for knowledge, and I'd never seen children so enthusiastic about school. The school coordinator told me that my students were the lucky few. She said that due to poverty and flooding, only about half of primary school-aged children in the region received education. When it was time for me to return to England, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. Instead of pursuing a graduate degree in history, I moved to New York and enrolled in NYU to get a master's degree in educational leadership, politics and advocacy. After graduating, I took a job at UNESCO, the United Nations organization which focuses on education. and became a fundraising coordinator, working closely with educational charities in South Asia. When I felt I'd gained enough experience from my job, I decided it was time to open up my own school. I worked to get funding and donations, and then I returned to Bangladesh. With the help of local teachers, I found the place where I'd be able to do the most good for the most children. I now operate 3 floating schools, which can reach students even during the rainy season. I consider myself lucky to have found my calling in life. As for the future, I dream of a day when every child will be able to experience the joy of learning and discovery that only education can offer.
Now, the first question, who is the writer of this text? Salman Sain. Where was he raised? On the outskirts of London. What did the school coordinator tell Sain? He told him that Sain's students were the lucky few and that due to poverty and flooding, only about half of primary school age children in the region received education. What did he decide to do after he would gain enough experience from his job? He decided it was time to open up his own school. Now, read the 2 texts carefully again. Then decide which person each of these points refer to. Write E for Abdul Sattar, AD, or S for Salman, signing. You are going to write E for AD and S for Salman. Let's start with the first group here. Works for UNESCO. Whose work is for UNESCO? Moves to Karachi. Who moves to Karachi? Opens orphanage. Who opens orphanage? Moves to New York. Who decided to take a gap year? Who takes care of his disabled mother? Returns to Bangladesh. Studies history. Let's discuss your answer. You can pause your video and continue with answering your questions. Works for UNESCO. He is Salman. Moves to Karachi. Abdul Sattar. Then who is open orphans? It's Abdul Sattar AD. Moves to New York. Salman. Decide to take a gap year. Salman too. Take care of his disabled mother. Good. Abdul Sattar AD. Returns to Bangladesh. Good. Salman. Studies history. Excellent. Salman too. Is praised by a national leader. He is Abdul Sattar. Buys an umbrella. He is Abdul Sattar 82. Operates 3 floating schools. He is Salman. Founds the welfare organization. Good. He is Abdul Sattar 80. Thank you very much for your listening. I hope that you understand your lesson today. See you soon, inshallah. Thanks for your lesson. Goodbye.